He thought he had won. He thought stripping her of the house, the car, and every last cent in their joint account would break her. David stood there on the wet pavement, a smirk on his face, waiting for the moment his ex-wife, Era, would turn around and beg for forgiveness. He wanted to see her crumble, but Era didn't cry. She didn't even look back. She simply walked to the curb, and seconds later, a sleek, obsidian-black Maybach pulled up, a car worth more than David's entire life. As the door opened and a hand reached out to welcome her, David realized too late. He hadn't discarded a broken woman. He had just set a queen free. And the man inside that car, he was about to turn David's world into a living nightmare. The fluorescent lights of the Chicago family court hummed with a headache-inducing buzz, a sound that David Reynolds usually associated with victory. As a mid-level corporate litigator, David was used to crushing people in rooms like this. He knew the smell of desperation, the sweat on a brow, the trembling hands of someone who knew they were beaten. Today, however, the person sitting across from him wasn't a rival CIO or a disgruntled employee. It was Ira, his wife of 6 years, or rather, his ex-wife in about 5 minutes. Sign here and here. David's lawyer, a man named Arthur Gable, who wore suits that cost more than Era's college tuition, tapped the thick document with a gold-plated pen. Arthur had a smile that didn't reach his eyes, a shark smelling blood in the water. David leaned back in his leather chair, crossing his arms. He watched Era closely. She looked small. She was wearing that beige trench coat he hated, the one she'd bought at a thrift store 3 years ago. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she wore zero makeup. To anyone else, she looked defeated. To David, she looked like a burden he was finally shedding. "Are you sure you understand the terms, Mrs. Reynolds?" Arthur asked, his voice dripping with condescension. "To clarify, you waive all rights to the Lakeshore Drive apartment. You waive spousal support. You retain personal effects only, clothing and books. You leave the 2024 Mercedes. You leave with, essentially, zero financial assets." David smirked. He had expected a fight. He had prepared for screaming, for her lawyers to drag this out for months. But Ira had fired her lawyer 2 weeks ago. She had just sent a simple email. "Draw up the papers. I'll sign whatever you want." It was pathetic, really. She couldn't survive without him. She had been a freelance graphic designer making peanuts when they met. He had built her up. He had given her a lifestyle, and now she was choosing poverty. Era didn't look up at Arthur. She didn't look at David. She just picked up the cheap plastic pen provided by the court, her hand steady. "I understand," she said softly. Her voice wasn't shaking. It was devoid of emotion entirely. It was the voice of a ghost. Scritch. Scratch. She signed her name, Ira Jenkins. She had already dropped his last name. David felt a sudden, irrational spike of anger. Why wasn't she crying? Why wasn't she asking him how she was supposed to pay rent? He wanted her to ask. He wanted the satisfaction of telling her, "Figure it out." "Done," Era said, sliding the papers across the mahogany table. She stood up. "That's it?" David blurted out, unable to help himself. "You're just going to walk out? You don't even have a ride, Era. It's pouring rain outside." Era paused. She placed her hands in her pockets and finally looked at him. Her eyes were a piercing blue, usually warm, but today they were like ice. "I don't need a ride from you, David," she said. "What are you going to do? Take the bus?" David laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "Good luck with that. The nearest stop is 3 blocks away. You're going to get soaked." "Goodbye, David," she said. No anger, no sadness, just finality. She turned and walked out of the conference room. David stood up, buttoning his suit jacket. "Let's go," he told Arthur. "I want to see this." "See what?" Arthur asked, packing his briefcase. "I want to see her standing in the rain," David muttered, grabbing his umbrella. "I want to see reality hit her." He hurried out of the room, trailing Ira down the long marble hallway of the courthouse. He kept a distance, watching her slumped shoulders. She looked fragile. He almost felt bad for her. Almost. But then he remembered the arguments, her constant nagging about his work hours, her quiet disapproval of his ambition. She held him back. She was dead weight. They exited the courthouse doors. The Chicago sky had opened up. Rain was coming down in sheets, turning the city into a grey blur. The wind was biting. Ira stepped out from the shelter of the overhang. She didn't open an umbrella. She just stood on the curb, the rain instantly darkening her beige coat. David stopped under the awning, staying dry. He lit a cigarette, watching the smoke curl into the damp air. He checked his Rolex. 2:15 p.m. He had a meeting at 3 hours, plenty of time to watch her suffer for a few minutes. "You can still call an Uber if you have any money left on your card," David shouted over the sound of the rain, grinning. Ira didn't turn around. She was staring intently down the street. David shook his head, stubborn to the end. Then the traffic shifted. The sea of yellow taxis and grey sedans parted. Turning the corner was a car that didn't belong in a standard divorce court pickup line. It was a long wheelbase luxury sedan, jet black, with tinted windows so dark they looked like voids. It was a Rolls-Royce Phantom, the kind with the Spirit of Ecstasy hood ornament that probably cost more than David's annual bonus. David frowned. Who is that for? Probably the judge, or maybe the mayor was in the building. The massive car glided silently through the puddles, the water spraying out in elegant arcs. It slowed down, and then it stopped, right in front of Ira. David's cigarette fell from his lips. "No way," he whispered. "She's in the way." He expected the driver to honk. He expected someone to yell at her to move. Instead, the driver's door opened. A man stepped out. He wasn't just a driver. He was security. He was built like a tank, wearing a fitted black suit and an earpiece. He ignored the rain completely. He walked around the back of the car with a brisk, professional stride, carrying a massive black umbrella. He snapped it open and held it over Ira's head, shielding her instantly. David stepped forward, the rain hitting his face, but he was too shocked to care. "What the hell?" The driver bowed his head slightly to Ira, a gesture of immense respect, deferential and familiar. He didn't ask her where she was going. He knew. He reached for the rear door handle and pulled it open. The interior of the car was bathed in warm, amber light, a stark contrast to the gloom outside. Cream leather seats, walnut trim, and there was someone inside. David squinted, stepping off the curb into a puddle, ruining his Italian loafers. "Who is that?" As Ira bent down to enter the car, the passenger inside leaned forward to help her. For a split second, the interior light caught the man's face. David froze. His breath hitched in his throat. He knew that face. Everyone in Chicago, no, everyone in the business world, knew that face. It was Sebastian Sterling. The Sebastian Sterling, the tech mogul who had sold his AI infrastructure company for $4 billion last year. The recluse. The man known as the Iron Ghost, because he never gave interviews, never attended galas, and destroyed his competitors with silent, ruthless efficiency. David's mind raced. How? Why? Ira was a graphic designer who liked knitting and watching documentaries. Sebastian Sterling was a titan of industry who lived in a penthouse that looked down on the clouds. They weren't even in the same universe. Era settled into the seat. Before the door closed, she looked out through the rain, her eyes locked onto David's one last time. She didn't smile. She didn't wave. She just looked at him with a strange expression. Not pity, but indifference. Like he was a stranger she had already forgotten. The heavy door thudded shut, sealing her inside the fortress of luxury. The driver returned to the front. The engine purred, a low, powerful growl, and the Rolls-Royce pulled away, merging seamlessly into traffic, leaving David standing in the rain, soaked, confused, and suddenly feeling very, very small. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it. It buzzed again. He pulled it out with trembling hands. It was a notification from his bank. Alert, joint asset liquidation finalized. But then another text came through. It wasn't from the bank. It was from an unknown number. She's gone, David, and you have no idea what you just threw away. Check your email. David stared at the screen, rain droplets blurring the text. He looked up, but the black car was already gone, disappeared into the grey city, taking his ex-wife and a secret he was only just beginning to unravel. The silence inside the Rolls-Royce was absolute, save for the rhythmic thrum of the wipers and the soft hum of the climate control. The scent of rain and exhaust from the street was instantly replaced by the smell of rich leather and expensive cologne, sandalwood and steel. Ira sat frozen, her hands clutching her wet knees. She didn't look at the man beside her. She couldn't. The adrenaline that had propelled her out of the courthouse was fading, replaced by the terrifying reality of what she had just done. "You're shaking," the man said. His voice was deep, resonant, and shockingly familiar. She had heard it 1,000 times over encrypted voice chats, usually distorted, but the cadence was unmistakable. Era turned slowly. Sebastian Sterling was looking at her, not with the predatory gaze of a billionaire assessing a new acquisition, but with the concern of an old friend. He picked up a cashmere blanket from the seat beside him and draped it over her shoulders. "Thank you, Iron Ghost," Era whispered, using his online handle. Sebastian smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his usually severe face. "You're welcome, Cypher Jane." For 3 years, they had been the 2 highest-ranked users on the Vault, an exclusive, invite-only forum for elite problem-solvers, cryptographers, data architects, and strategists. They had spent countless nights solving impossible puzzles together, debating philosophy, and eventually sharing the secrets of their real lives. He knew she was trapped in a loveless marriage with a narcissist who stifled her brilliance. She knew he was isolated by his own success, unable to trust anyone because they all wanted his money. But they had never met. Until today. "I didn't think you'd actually come," Era said, pulling the blanket tighter. "I thought you were in Tokyo." "I was," Sebastian said, pouring a glass of sparkling water from a crystal decanter. He handed it to her. "Then you messaged me that you were finally leaving him. I told the pilot to turn the jet around." Era took the glass, her hands trembling. "He took everything, Seb. The house, the savings. He even took the dog." "He took nothing of value," Sebastian corrected her sharply. "He took the assets, but he left the source. You are the source, Era. You always were." He tapped a button on the armrest, and a partition slid up, separating them from the driver. "Does he know?" Sebastian asked. "No." Era shook her head. "He thinks I'm just a mediocre graphic designer who got lucky with a few freelance gigs. He has no idea that I wrote the algorithm that got him his promotion. He has no idea I've been ghostwriting his legal strategies for 5 years." "Good." Sebastian leaned back, his eyes darkening. "Because that's going to make the next part very fun to watch." Meanwhile, back on the rain-slicked street, David was huddled under the awning of a newsstand, furiously wiping water off his phone screen. He was wet, cold, and humiliated. But mostly, he was confused. Sebastian Sterling. Why? His phone pinged again. The email, the one the mysterious text had told him to check. He opened his mail app. The subject line made his stomach drop. Notice of immediate audit and termination of contract. It wasn't from his bank. It was from his biggest client, Ethelgard Systems, the client that accounted for 60% of his firm's revenue. The client David had secured solely because of a brilliant predictive analytics model he had presented to them, a model Era had built on their kitchen table one Sunday night while David watched football. David's trembling finger tapped the email open. Mr. Reynolds, effective immediately, Ethelgard Systems is severing all ties with Reynolds and Associates. Furthermore, our internal security team, led by our new Chief Information Officer, has discovered irregularities in the code you submitted last month. The metadata on the source files indicates the work was not authored by you, but by a user registered as CypherJane. Since your contract explicitly states that all work must be performed by the lead consultant, you are in breach. We are initiating a clawback of the $2.4 million retainer fee paid to your firm. Attached is a copy of the digital forensic report. We suggest you find a very good lawyer. Signed, Legal Department, Ethelgard Systems. David felt like the pavement was dissolving beneath his feet. CypherJane. He knew that name. He had seen it on Era's laptop screen once. He had mocked her for it. "Stop playing video games, Era, and make dinner," he had said. His breath came in short, shallow gasps. Era wasn't just playing games. She was working. She was the genius behind his success, and she had just driven away in a Rolls-Royce. No. David dialed his boss, Arthur. "What is it, Reynolds?" Arthur answered, sounding annoyed. "Arthur, listen. There's been a mistake with Ethelgard." "A mistake?" Arthur's voice turned to ice. "I just got off the phone with their CEO. He says you're a fraud, David. He says you didn't write the code. He says your wife did." "Arthur, I can explain. You're fired, David. Don't come back to the office. Security is packing up your desk as we speak. If you set foot in the building, we'll have you arrested for corporate espionage." Click. David lowered the phone. The rain was coming down harder now, soaking through his expensive suit, chilling him to the bone. He looked at the spot where the black car had been. He hadn't just lost his wife. He had lost his shield. Inside the warm cocoon of the Rolls-Royce, Sebastian watched a notification pop up on his tablet. Delivery confirmed. Email read by D. Reynolds. Status: Ethelgard contract terminated. Sebastian smirked and closed the tablet. He looked at Era, who was staring out the window at the passing city lights. "Where are we going?" she asked softly. "To the airfield," Sebastian replied. "You need clothes that aren't from a thrift store. You need food that isn't ramen. And you need to be somewhere where David can't find you." "I don't want to run away," Era said, turning to him. There was a spark in her blue eyes now. "I'm done running." "We aren't running," Sebastian promised. "We're regrouping. We're going to my estate in Aspen for a week, to breathe." "And then?" He paused, looking at her with intensity. "And then we come back, and we take everything." 3 weeks later. David Reynolds sat in his empty apartment. Well, soon to be empty. The eviction notice was taped to the door. The living room was dark, illuminated only by the glow of the television. Pizza boxes littered the floor. He hadn't shaved in days. The silence in the apartment was deafening. He used to hate the sound of Era typing on her mechanical keyboard. Now, he would give anything to hear it. He took a swig of cheap whiskey directly from the bottle. He had tried to call her. Her number was disconnected. He had gone to her sister's house. Her sister had laughed in his face and threatened to release the hounds. He had tried to log into the bank accounts, only to find them frozen by the IRS, pending an investigation into his fraudulent business practices. He was toxic, radioactive. No firm in Chicago would hire him. On the TV screen, the local news was playing. And in business news, the tech world is buzzing about the mysterious new partnership announced by Sterling Industries. David's head snapped up. The screen cut to a live feed of a press conference. It was taking place in the lobby of the Sterling Tower, a building of glass and steel that pierced the sky. Camera flashes were going off like strobe lights. At the podium stood Sebastian Sterling. He looked immaculate in a charcoal suit, commanding the room with effortless power. For years, Sebastian spoke into the microphone, his voice smooth and confident. Sterling Industries has been searching for a director of innovation capable of leading our new AI division. I needed a mind that could see around corners. I needed a visionary. David leaned forward, squinting. Don't say it. Don't you dare say it. I am proud to announce, Sebastian continued, sweeping his hand to the side, my new partner and co-CEO of the Sterling Vanguard Division, Ms. Ira Jenkins. David dropped the whiskey bottle. It shattered on the floor, splashing amber liquid over his bare feet. But he didn't feel a thing. Ira stepped out from behind the curtain. She was unrecognizable. Gone was the messy bun, the oversized sweaters, the hunched posture of a woman trying to make herself small. She wore a tailored white power suit that looked like it cost more than David's car. Her hair was cut into a sharp, chic bob that framed her face. Her makeup was flawless, highlighting those piercing blue eyes. But it was her stance that killed him. Shoulders back, chin up, radiating a terrifying confidence. She approached the microphone. She didn't look nervous. She looked like she owned the building. "Thank you, Sebastian," she said. Her voice was steady, amplified through the speakers. For a long time, I worked in the shadows. I let others take credit for my ideas because I was told I wasn't corporate enough. I was told my place was in the background. She looked directly into the camera. David felt like she was staring right into his soul. "But I'm done with shadows," she said. "Today we are launching Project Alethea, a transparency algorithm designed to detect corporate fraud and intellectual property theft." The crowd murmured excitedly. "We have already run a beta test on several local firms," Era continued, a ghost of a smile playing on her lips. "And the results were illuminating." David's phone started ringing. It was Arthur, his old boss. David stared at the screen. He knew what Arthur was going to say. Era's new software had probably just flagged every corner David had cut, every lie he had told, every dollar he had skimmed. "She's going to bury me," David whispered to the empty room. "She's going to bury us all." High above the city, in the penthouse suite of the Sterling Tower, the real celebration was beginning. The TV was muted. Era stood by the window, looking down at Chicago. It looked different from up here. It looked like a circuit board, a puzzle she could solve. "You were perfect," Sebastian said, coming up behind her. He handed her a glass of champagne. "I was terrified," Era admitted, accepting the glass. "Did you see my hand shaking?" "I saw a queen addressing her subjects," Sebastian said. He stood next to her, not touching, just close enough that she could feel his heat. "How does it feel?" Era took a sip, the bubbles dancing on her tongue. She thought about David, sitting in the apartment she had cleaned for 6 years, probably watching this very moment. She thought about the way he used to check the grocery receipts to make sure she hadn't spent too much on unnecessary items like brand-name coffee. "It feels," Era said, turning to look at Sebastian. like I can finally breathe. This is just the beginning, Sebastian said. Project Alethea is going to destroy your ex-husband's reputation, yes, but that's just a side effect. We're going to change the industry, Era. About that, Era said, her expression turning serious. David isn't just going to give up. He's a coward, but he's a cornered rat. He knows people. Bad people. Let him try, Sebastian shrugged, his face hardening into that iron ghost mask. I have security teams that make the Secret Service look like mall cops. You are untouchable here. It's not just me I'm worried about, Era said. David knows about the vault. He knows your handle now. If he leaks that Sebastian Sterling is Iron Ghost, your anonymity is gone. Your enemies, the real ones, not just local lawyers, will come for you. Sebastian paused. He set his glass down. He wouldn't dare. He has nothing left to lose, Seb. A man with nothing to lose is the most dangerous man on earth. As if on cue, the intercom on Sebastian's desk buzzed. It was the concierge from the lobby. Mr. Sterling? The voice was trembling. What is it? Sebastian pressed the button. There's a package delivered for Ms. Jenkins. It didn't go through the scanner. A courier left it and ran. Era went pale. Bring it up. Carefully, Sebastian ordered. 5 minutes later, a security guard brought in a small, brown cardboard box. He placed it on the coffee table and stepped back. It had been scanned for explosives. Negative. Sebastian took a penknife and slit the tape. He opened the flaps. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a single object. It was an old, battered hard drive. Era gasped. That's my backup drive, from college. I thought I lost this years ago. What's on it? Sebastian asked. Everything, Era whispered. My old code, my diaries, photos, but there's something else. She reached in and pulled out a note tucked under the drive. It was handwritten in jagged, frantic scrawl. I know about Zurich. I know about the accounts. You took my life, Era. Now I'm going to take yours. You have 24 hours to leave him and come back to me, or I release the files on this drive to the press. And trust me, Iron Ghost won't look so heroic when they see what you two were really doing in the dark web all those years ago. Era dropped the note. He's bluffing, Sebastian said, his voice low. We never did anything illegal. No, Era looked at him, fear returning to her eyes. We didn't. But he tampered with the drive. If he planted evidence on this, if he framed us. Sebastian picked up the note. He read it, then crumbled it in his fist. He wants a war, Sebastian said, his voice terrifyingly calm. Fine, we'll give him a war. He turned to his head of security, who was standing by the door. Get the jet ready. We're going to Zurich. Why Zurich? Era asked. Because, Sebastian said, that's where the money is. And that's where we're going to set the trap that catches this rat once and for all. Zurich, Switzerland. The air here was different. Crisp, thin, and smelling of old money and pine. While David was dragging himself through the slush of Chicago, Era was standing on a stone balcony overlooking Lake Zurich. The water was a sheet of black glass, reflecting the glittering lights of the city. Behind her, in the grand ballroom of the Dolder Grand Hotel, the gala was in full swing. She swirled the champagne in her glass. It was vintage Dom Perignon, poured by a waiter in white gloves who anticipated her thirst before she even felt it. You're hiding, Sebastian's voice came from the shadows. He stepped out onto the balcony. He looked devastating in a tuxedo, midnight blue, tailored to perfection. He loosened his bow tie slightly as he approached her. I'm not hiding, Era said, turning to him. Just breathing. It's been a whirlwind, Seb. Yesterday I was signing divorce papers in a thrift store coat. Tonight, I just closed a $12 million deal with the Swiss bank." "13 million," Sebastian corrected her, leaning against the stone railing. "I heard you negotiated the extra million for maintenance fees." "Brutal. I loved it." Era laughed. It felt good to laugh. "I learned from the best." Sebastian looked at her, his expression softening. "You did that on your own, Era. You always had it in you. David just acted as a dimmer switch. Now the lights are up." At the mention of David, Era's smile faltered slightly. "Do you think he took the bait? The leak about us being here?" "I made sure he did," Sebastian said darkly. "My team left a digital breadcrumb trail even a fool like David could follow. He thinks he's hunting us. In reality, he's walking into a cage." "Why go to these lengths?" Era asked. "We have the money. We have the power. Why not just ignore him?" "Because," Sebastian said, moving closer, his voice dropping an octave. "He threatened you. He threatened to expose the vault. He thinks he can drag you back into the mud. I need to show him, once and for all, that you are out of his reach." Era looked up at him. They were close now. She could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. The chemistry between them had been building for months, ever since they met online as Iron Ghost and Cypher Jane. "Thank you, Sebastian," she whispered. He leaned in. "Stop thanking me. Just stay with me." He kissed her. It wasn't a Hollywood kiss. It was desperate and real, a promise of protection that David had never been capable of giving. Suddenly, the heavy glass door to the balcony slid open. "Mr. Sterling." It was Sebastian's head of security. Since the previous guard had stayed in Chicago to monitor the firm, this was Silas, a man who looked like he had been carved out of granite, ex-military, efficient, and terrifying. Sebastian pulled away, but kept his arm around Era's waist. "What is it, Silas?" "We have a situation at the gate. A man is trying to gain entry. He's not on the list, but he's making a scene. Claims he's family." Era went cold. "David," she whispered. "He's here?" Sebastian's eyes narrowed. "How did he get to Switzerland so fast?" "He's broke." "He sold his watch," Silas said, checking his earpiece. "And apparently he cashed out a hidden crypto wallet we missed. He's at the front entrance, demanding to see his wife. He's screaming that she's been kidnapped by a cult." Era stepped forward, her hands shaking. "I'll handle this." "No," Sebastian said, stepping in front of her. "You are the guest of honor. You stay here and drink champagne. I will handle the garbage." "He's dangerous, Seb. He's desperate. He sent that note." "So am I," Sebastian said, his voice dropping to a terrifyingly low register. "He came to my city. He came to my hotel. He's about to find out why they call me the Iron Ghost." Down in the lobby, David Reynolds looked like a madman. His suit was wrinkled from the economy flight. He hadn't shaved. His eyes were bloodshot from jet lag and a manic energy that had been fueling him for 48 hours. "I know she's up there," David shouted at the stoic Swiss receptionist. Era Reynolds, tell her her husband is here." "Sir, please lower your voice or we will call the Polizei," the receptionist said calmly. "Call them. I don't care. That man, Sterling, he brainwashed her. He's running a criminal enterprise." David turned to the lobby guests, spreading his arms. "You hear me? Sebastian Sterling is a thief. He stole my wife. He stole my company." The elevator chimed. The lobby went silent. Sebastian Sterling walked out. He wasn't alone. He was flanked by Silas and 2 other guards, but Sebastian didn't need them. The aura of power radiating off him was enough to clear the room. He walked straight up to David. He didn't shout. He didn't look angry. He looked bored. "David," Sebastian said. "You look terrible." David lunged at him, but Silas caught him by the arm before he could get within 3 feet. He twisted David's arm behind his back with practiced ease. "Let me go," David spat, wincing in pain. "Where is she? Where is Oira?" "She's upstairs," Sebastian said calmly, celebrating her success, something she never had with you. "You stole my code," David screamed. "And I have the drive. I sent you the note. I know what you two were doing on the vault, hacking into foreign servers, manipulating stock prices. I'll ruin you." Sebastian laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "You really didn't check the drive before you threatened me, did you, David?" David froze. "What?" "The drive you found," Sebastian said, stepping closer, invading David's personal space. Era encrypted that drive with a self-cannibalizing script 5 years ago. The moment you tried to access the files to verify them, the drive wiped itself. It's a brick, David. It's empty. You traveled 4,000 miles to blackmail me with a paperweight. David's face went white. The leverage, the only thing he had left. It was gone. I didn't... You are a fraud, David, and now you're a trespasser. But I'm going to give you a choice. Option A. The Swiss police arrest you. You go to jail for harassment, blackmail, and public intoxication. You get deported. Your career is over. David panted, glaring at him. Option B. Option B, Sebastian continued. You walk out that door. You get in the car waiting outside. It will take you to the airport. There is a one-way ticket back to Chicago purchased in your name. You go there. You disappear. You never speak Era's name again. You think you can just exile me? David scoffed, a wild look entering his eyes. You think you won? I think, Sebastian said, his eyes flashing, that you are playing checkers, and I flipped the board 10 minutes ago. David slumped in Silas's grip. He looked at the elevator, then at Sebastian. He realized finally that he was out of his league. Fine, David whispered. Smart choice, Sebastian signaled Silas. Escort Mr. Reynolds to the car. As they dragged him away, David looked back. She won't be happy with you, Sterling. She'll get bored. She's plain. She's boring. You'll see. Sebastian didn't even turn around. He adjusted his cufflinks and walked back to the elevator. But as the doors closed, Sebastian pulled out his phone. He dialed a number. Is it done? He asked. Yes, sir. A voice on the other end replied. But, sir, there's a problem. What problem? The background check on David's recent activity. He didn't just buy a plane ticket. He transferred the last of his money, $10,000, to an encrypted account on the dark web, a generic fixer service. Sebastian's blood ran cold. David was a fool, but the people he tried to hire in his desperation were not. The drive might be empty, but the contract David put out might still be active. Lock down the hotel, Sebastian ordered. Now. Up in the ballroom, the music had swelled to a waltz. Era was feeling lightheaded, happy. She had just finished a conversation with the CIO of a major tech firm who wanted to license her algorithms. For the first time in her life, she felt seen. She wandered back toward the balcony, wanting to tell Sebastian the good news. The cool night air called to her. She stepped out. The balcony was empty. Seb, she called out. She walked to the railing, looking down at the street. She saw a black sedan speeding away from the hotel entrance. That must be David. She felt a strange mixture of pity and relief. It was finally over. She turned to go back inside, but a movement on the adjacent rooftop across the narrow street caught her eye. It was a flash of light, a reflection. Era squinted. The building across the street was a bank, dark for the night. But on the roof, a shadow moved against the grey sky. Then she saw it. A tiny, dancing red laser dot appeared on the stone floor of the balcony. It moved fast, up the stone railing, across the hem of her white dress, toward her chest. Time seemed to slow down. Era's brain couldn't process it. A laser? A sniper? Era, get down! The scream came from the ballroom door. Sebastian was sprinting across the marble floor, his face a mask of terror. He had ditched his cool, composed persona entirely. Crack! The sound was like a whip snapping, echoing off the mountains. Era felt a rush of wind past her ear. The bullet shattered the heavy glass door behind her, sending shards raining down on the ballroom floor. Screams erupted from inside. Sebastian didn't stop. He tackled her, driving her to the hard stone floor of the balcony, covering her body with his. Crack, crack. 2 more shots. One chipped the stone railing right where Era's hand had been a second ago. The other embedded itself in the wall with a puff of concrete dust. "Stay down!" Sebastian roared into her ear. He dragged her behind the thick stone pillar of the balcony, the only cover available. "What is happening?" Ira cried, her ears ringing from the concussive blasts. "David's hired gun!" Sebastian gritted out, pressing his body over hers to shield her. He pressed a button on his watch. "Code Red! Balcony! Sector 4! We are under fire!" Sirens began to wail in the distance. Era was trembling, clutching Sebastian's lapels. "David did this? He wants me dead?" "He hired a professional," Sebastian said, his eyes scanning the rooftops. "He probably put out a blind contract. Eliminate the target. He lost control of the situation." Suddenly, the red dot appeared again. It was searching for them, dancing near the pillar. "We have to move," Sebastian said. "He has an angle on this pillar. He's repositioning. When I say go, we run for the door." "I can't," Era sobbed. Her legs felt like jelly. The reality of violence was too much. "Yes, you can." Sebastian grabbed her face, forcing her to look at him. "You are Era Jenkins. You survived 6 years of hell with that man. You can survive 10 feet of balcony. Do you trust me?" Era looked into his eyes. The fear was there, but so was a fierce, burning determination. He would die for her. She realized that with absolute clarity. "Yes," she whispered. "Go." They scrambled up. Sebastian kept himself between Era and the rooftop, acting as a human shield. They ran toward the shattered door. Crack! Era heard a sickening thud, a grunt of pain. Sebastian stumbled forward, his weight slamming into her. "Seb!" "Keep going!" he gasped, shoving her through the shattered door frame into the ballroom. They crashed onto the carpet. Silas and the security team were there instantly, surrounding them with Kevlar briefcases, forming a wall. "Target down! Sniper on the north roof!" Silas yelled into his radio. "Police are engaging!" Era scrambled to her knees. She looked at Sebastian. He was lying on his back, breathing hard. His face was pale. There was a dark, spreading stain on the shoulder of his midnight blue tuxedo. "You're hit!" Era screamed, her hands hovering over the wound, afraid to touch it. "It's just a scratch," Sebastian wheezed, trying to smile, but his teeth were gritty with pain. Through and through. Didn't hit anything important. "Medic!" Silas shouted. Ira pressed her hands against the wound, trying to staunch the flow. The hot blood seeped through her fingers, staining her white suit red. The gala guests were screaming, running for the exits. The dream night had turned into a nightmare. "Don't you die on me," Era commanded, tears streaming down her face, mixing with the dust and blood. "Do not dare die on me, Sebastian Sterling." Sebastian reached up with his good hand, his fingers trembling as they brushed her cheek. "I told you," he whispered, his eyes fluttering shut. "I'd never let him win." His hand dropped to the floor. "Sebastian!" Ira screamed, her voice breaking. The next hour was a blur of blue lights and chaos. Paramedics swarmed the ballroom. Era refused to leave Sebastian's side until they forced her back to load him onto the stretcher. She watched them cut open his tuxedo, hooking him up to IVs. "Is he going to make it?" she demanded of the German-speaking paramedic. "He has lost a lot of blood, Frau," the paramedic said grimly. "We must hurry." Era stood in the lobby of the Dolder Grand, covered in the blood of the man she loved. The police were everywhere. Silas walked up to her. He looked shaken. "We got the shooter," Silas said. "He tried to flee across the rooftops. He slipped. He didn't make it." "And David?" Era asked, her voice cold as ice. "We tracked the payment," Silas said. The shooter's phone had a message from an anonymous number. The timestamp was from 20 minutes ago. It said, "Finish it. I don't care if you have to burn the hotel down." Era closed her eyes. David hadn't just hired a fixer and regretted it. He had doubled down. He had given the order while Sebastian was confronting him in the lobby. "Where is David now?" Ira asked. "He's at the airport," Silas said. "Waiting for his flight. He thinks he got away with it. He thinks the sniper will do the job, and he'll be in the air before anyone knows." Era opened her eyes. The fear was gone. In its place was a cold, hard rage. "Get the car," Era said. "Mom?" Silas blinked. "You need to go to the hospital." "Sebastian has the best doctors in the world," Era said, walking toward the exit. "He fights his battle. I fight mine. Take me to the airport." "What are you going to do?" Era stopped and looked at Silas. She looked like an avenging angel in a blood-stained suit. "I'm going to finish the divorce." Zurich Airport was a gleaming labyrinth of glass and steel, usually a place of quiet efficiency. But for David Reynolds, sitting at gate E43, it felt like a cage closing in. He checked his watch for the 50th time. 11:45 p.m. His flight to Chicago was boarding in 10 minutes. He was vibrating with nervous energy. He kept checking the news on his phone, waiting for the headline, "Shooting at Dolder Grand. Billionaire dead." But there was nothing yet. Just reports of a security incident. "Come on," David muttered, bouncing his leg. "Just let me get in the air." He felt justified. He had convinced himself of it. Sebastian had stolen his wife. Era had humiliated him. They had taken his career, his money, his reputation. They deserved it. He was just balancing the scales. "Mr. Reynolds." David jumped, dropping his phone. He spun around. He expected a police officer. Instead, standing 10 feet away, in the middle of the empty gate waiting area, was Ira. David's mouth fell open. She looked like a nightmare and a goddess all at once. Her white power suit was ruined, stiff with drying blood. Sebastian's blood on the left side. Her hair was disheveled, but her eyes were clear, dry, and burning with a terrifying intensity. She wasn't flanked by guards. She was standing there alone. "Era?" David stammered. He looked behind her, expecting Sebastian. You're alive?" "You sound disappointed, David," Era said, her voice carrying across the quiet terminal. David stood up, looking around frantically. The gate agents were staring, but nobody moved. "I don't know what you're talking about," David lied, though his voice cracked. "I'm just going home. I'm glad you're okay." Is Sterling okay?" "Drop the act," Era said, taking a step forward. The click of her heels on the linoleum sounded like gunshots. "Silas found the burner phone, David. We have the text messages." "Finish it." "That was you." David's face twisted. The mask of the concerned ex-husband melted away, revealing the ugly, petty man beneath. "He deserved it," David hissed, stepping toward her. "He took everything from me. And you, look at you. You think you're some big CEO now. You're nothing without me. I made you. You didn't make me, Era said calmly. You erased me. You kept me small so you could feel big. You stole my work, my money, and my years. And when I finally left, you tried to kill the only man who ever saw me for who I really am. He's dead, isn't he? David sneered, glancing at the blood on her suit. That's a lot of blood, Era. Looks like the Iron Ghost wasn't bulletproof. He's in surgery, Era said. He's fighting. But you? She stopped 3 feet from him. She wasn't afraid. She looked at him with pure disgust. You are done fighting, David. I'm getting on that plane, David laughed, backing toward the jet bridge. And by the time I land in Chicago, I'll have disappeared. You can't prove anything. It was a burner phone. No trace. Era slowly pulled her own phone from her pocket. She turned the screen around to face him. It showed a live video call. David squinted. On the screen was a man in a police uniform. And behind him, behind the officer, on a metal table, was a laptop. David's laptop, the one he had thrown in a dumpster 3 blocks from the hotel before coming to the airport. You really are bad at technology, David, Era said, cold. You thought deleting the files was enough? You thought a dumpster would hide it? Silas's team recovered it 20 minutes ago. They already found the crypto transfer to the hitman. It wasn't even encrypted properly. David froze. And, Era added, this video call is being broadcast to the Zurich cantonal police. David looked around. Suddenly, the doors to the jet bridge burst open. Police officers in tactical gear swarmed from the tunnel behind him. At the same time, the glass doors of the terminal entrance slid open, and a dozen more officers sprinted in, weapons drawn. David Reynolds! A booming voice shouted. Polizei! Get on the ground! Now! David panicked. He looked at the police, then at Era. For a second, he looked like he might lunge at her to take her hostage. Era didn't flinch. She just stared him down. Try it, she dared him. Give them a reason. David crumbled. He dropped to his knees, sobbing. It wasn't me. She made me do it. She's crazy. He screamed as the officers tackled him, forcing his face into the cold floor. As they cuffed his hands behind his back, tight, David lifted his head, desperation in his eyes. Era, please. I'm your husband. We were married. Don't let them take me to a Swiss prison. Era watched them drag him away. She didn't look away. She watched until he was shoved into the back of a police van, visible through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Only when the sirens faded into the night did she finally let out a breath. She looked at her reflection in the glass, blood-stained, exhausted, but standing tall. She turned to Silas, who had been standing silently by the exit the whole time. Take me back to the hospital, she said. 6 months later. The courtroom in Chicago was packed. It was the trial of the decade, the state versus David Reynolds. But Era wasn't there. She had already given her testimony via video link from Switzerland. She had no interest in seeing David's face again. The verdict came in at 2:00 p.m. Guilty on all counts: conspiracy to commit murder, corporate espionage, wire fraud, grand larceny. The judge, a stern woman who had no patience for David's tearful pleas for leniency, sentenced him to 35 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. David Reynolds, the man who wanted to own the world, would spend the rest of his life in a 6x8 concrete box. Meanwhile, in a sun-drenched garden in Tuscany, Italy. Era sat on a stone bench, typing on her laptop. The gentle breeze smelled of lemon and basil. She closed the laptop. Project Alethea had just gone global. It was now the standard security software for 80% of the Fortune 500. She heard footsteps on the gravel path. She didn't look up, smiling. You're supposed to be resting. I rested for 4 months, a deep voice replied. "I think I've earned a walk." Sebastian Sterling walked into view. He was using a cane, a sleek, black carbon fiber cane that looked more like a weapon than a medical aid. He moved a little slower than before, and there was a slight stiffness in his left shoulder. But he was alive. He looked better than alive. He looked happy. He sat down next to her, wincing slightly as he adjusted his leg. "Did you hear?" Sebastian asked. 35 years, Era nodded. "It's over." Sebastian took her hand. "He can never hurt you again." "He hasn't been able to hurt me for a long time," Era said, squeezing his hand. "Not since that day in the rain." Sebastian looked out at the rolling hills of the vineyard. "You know, I was thinking. We missed our chance." "For what?" "For a proper introduction," Sebastian smiled mischievously. "I picked you up in the rain. We ran a company. We got shot at. We put a man in prison. But we never actually went on a first date." Ira laughed. It was a full, bright sound that scared the birds out of the olive trees. "I think the gala counts as a date," she said. "Except for the sniper part." "No," Sebastian shook his head. "I want to do it right." He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. Era's breath hitched. "Era," Sebastian said, his face serious, "you are the most brilliant code I have ever encountered. You fixed me. You saved me. I don't want to be the Iron Ghost anymore. I just want to be the man who stands next to you." He opened the box. Inside was a ring, not a massive, gaudy diamond like David would have picked to show off his wealth. It was a rare, deep blue sapphire, the exact color of Era's eyes, set in a band of interwoven platinum and black steel. "Era Jenkins," Sebastian whispered, "will you build a future with me?" Era looked at the ring, then at the man who had taken a bullet for her, the man who had waited in the rain. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Sebastian." He slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. They kissed, and for the first time in her life, Era didn't feel like she was settling. She felt like she had finally arrived. A horn honked in the distance. Parked at the bottom of the villa's driveway was the car, the obsidian black Rolls-Royce Phantom. The driver, Silas, was leaning against the hood, checking his watch, a rare smile on his face. "Ready to go, Madam CEO?" Sebastian asked, standing up and offering her his arm. Era stood up. She smoothed her dress. She looked at the ring on her finger, then back at the horizon where the sun was setting. She remembered the woman standing on the curb in the rain, feeling worthless. She blew a kiss to that woman, letting her go forever. "I'm ready," Ira said. She took the billionaire's arm, and together they walked toward the car, leaving the past in the dust, ready to ride into a future they owned completely. And so, David Reynolds learned the hardest lesson of all. You never truly know the value of what you're holding until you let it go. He thought he was discarding a broken wife, but he was actually releasing a titan. Ira didn't need to scream to win. She didn't need to fight dirty. She just needed to walk away and step into the life that was waiting for her all along. In the end, the best revenge wasn't prison, or bankruptcy, or even the bullet wound. It was Era's happiness. Because while David rots in a cell thinking about the past, Era is out there building the future, and she's doing it from the back of a Rolls-Royce. Wow, what a journey! From a rainy courthouse sidewalk to a villa in Tuscany. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, please hit that like button right now. It helps the channel so much. Do you think David got what he deserved with 35 years? Or was that too lenient? Let me know your verdict in the comments below. And if you want more stories like this, stories of betrayal, revenge, and justice served ice cold, Make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next story.